Welcome to Catty Chats from Cat Ladies for America. I'm your host, Blair Postman, and here to tell us why ICE is even more of a nightmare than you already thought are Michael Riston and Bree Jarosco of Project Saltbox. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Mike, tell us what Project Saltbox is.
Just a group of public records enthusiasts. We're all people that kind of came together under the common goal of trying to understand, what is ICE doing in the year post the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and as they have gained unprecedented buying power, literally more buying power than the United States Marine Corps. What does that mean for our community? Which is kind of how we got our start. Was what does this mean for Baltimore? But it's just a way of tracking their spending and tracking what they're buying and tracking where that buying is landing and how that's impacting people. And so I think we took inspiration from the salt boxes we're all pretty familiar with here in Baltimore.
We have crossed paths over the last couple of months because we are both based in Baltimore, and I'm very happy to have just met Bree. And tell us what the salt boxes are.
Salt box, right? It's this little yellow, it's like safety yellow. It sits on the corner of streets that are typically pretty hard to plow, and it's just full of road salt. And it's there for people that live in the community to come grab a cup full of salt or shovel some salt out and take care of the roads on their own before it snows so that things don't get icy.
It's a box of material that melts ice and helps citizens take care of each other. Bree, what kind of data are you and Mike looking through?
So we're basically just looking at any public record we can get our hands on. At first, it started out with USA Spending and SAM.gov, and now it's expanded to Michael's a pro at reading permits, construction permits, deeds, county meeting minutes, and it's all publicly available. Everyone can read the same stuff we are. We're just really good at Googling, I guess.
And I'd say a little bit more than that. And yes, we did just see your cat's tail or one of your cat's tail. So let's just stop right here for a second. Bree, how many cats do you have?
I have 8.
Do I bring you cat ladies or do I bring you cat ladies? What makes you and Michael qualified? You say you're just great Googlers. I Google. I'm not doing this.
So we both have military experience. What had made me start looking originally and how I met Michael, I posted all of these contracts that I found on Reddit, and I was like, hey, I don't know if this indicates that ICE is going to be coming to Baltimore. I'd rather say something than nothing, and you guys think I'm crazy and wrong. And then Michael hit me up in the comments and was like, send me the documents. Let's go over all of it. And being in the Army, I knew that everything that the government wanted to do, every job, anything they wanted to buy, had to go through a contracting
process.
Yes. When I first started looking through stuff, I didn't really understand what everything said. So naturally you look at it and you look at what's happening on the streets and you think everything is automatically nefarious. So Michael has been really sane in breaking down what is not to be worried about and what's important. And I guess his military experience gave him the same expertise.
Mike, what is your background?
I did 20 years in the Air Force. I was an intelligence analyst in the Air Force, specializing in foreign languages, but also specializing in report writing and investigation. And so I have a long time of doing this kind of work, in a very different setting, obviously. But professional Googler is probably the most apt description for us. Just knowing that there are all kinds of public repositories and public databases. And part of my time in the Air Force was spent, at Headquarters Air Force at the Pentagon, where I dealt quite a bit with contracts and looking at different contract vehicles and how they work and how they play and, how we fund those. So I have experience from that.
So now you're using this to try to figure out what ICE has planned, what the DHS has planned. What have you found these documents able to reveal ahead of the curve before they were publicly widely known? What sorts of things were you guys able to uncover in the documents before they were out generally in the news?
The cache of documents that got us talking to one another was this sort of open-ended General Services Administration contracts for leasing opportunities all over the United States, asking for something like 34 turnkey office locations around the U.S. for support to federal law enforcement. And so one of those locations happened to be in Baltimore. We were trying to figure out, okay, well, is that an indicator? Is that something that shows that ICE is going to come our way? But in the course of that investigation, right, they're looking for a turnkey office in Baltimore. what else are they looking for in Baltimore? You started seeing all of this big spending happening in the wake of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act to build out this very robust detention infrastructure. They were hiding a lot of purchases under General Services Administration. They were sharing funds with, the FBI and U.S. Marshal Service. So you would find, I think in one case, they even took NASA money to buy computer equipment for one of their field offices.
Taking money from NASA, for example, or the FBI, is that, I don't know how else to say it, is that legal?
It can be. The timing is what made it very interesting because, again, this was just a few months post-DOGE. We were in the middle of a federal government shutdown at the time. And so seeing money just being pulled from left, right, and center felt like a way to really plus up what ICE was able to do at the expense of everyone else.
Let's pretend that I saw the documents that you saw that acknowledged that they were looking for more admin space. If I saw that, I would not have necessarily thought, oh, these excuse me, Brie, I'm from New Jersey and I swear a lot. Those are opening a bunch of concentration camp detention centers. But something in that document, those leases, made you think that was exactly what they might be doing.
Something that we've talked about quite a bit as a group is, it's the boring things that make the most interesting, sort of the most interesting discoveries. I'll give a very quick example of that. The thing that let us know in advance that they were drawing down in Chicago before they actually drew down in Chicago was the cancellation of a contract for laundry services, portable laundry service. That's how we knew they were leaving. In the military, when you're deployed, portable laundry is like the thing that keeps you moving, right? If your clothes aren't clean and you're in a deployed setting, if the laundry isn't there, then the operations aren't there. In Chicago, we saw that they were terminating that contract, and then lo and behold, like 2 days later, they announced the ending of Chicago, the Midway Blitz operation.
A more recent example I'd like y'all's opinion on. Allegedly, they are drawing down in Minneapolis, and they may have drawn out somewhere between 700 and 1,000 troops. Maybe, maybe not. Although when I speak to people who are on the ground in Minneapolis or St. Paul or the surrounding areas, it's still pretty awful. What have you seen and what does it mean for Minneapolis?
Something that I think is very important for the general public to understand is that when ICE refers to a city, they're actually referring to an area of responsibility. One of the things that kind of tipped us off that Baltimore was going to end up being a much bigger to do than it really is portrayed in the media is when they talk about Baltimore, they're not talking about the 500,000 people that live in Baltimore proper. They are talking about the entire state of Maryland. Everything that happens in Maryland is considered Baltimore. It's the Baltimore field office, the Baltimore area of responsibility.
Got you. Okay.
Similarly, in Minneapolis, St. Paul, when they refer to Minneapolis, they are referring to pretty much the entire state of Minnesota and some of the Great Lakes region as well. And so they can interchangeably say semantically, we are withdrawing from Minneapolis, the city, but that does not mean that they are withdrawing from the entire state of Minnesota. If they draw down in Customs and Border Patrol, which is what we saw, right? The announcement was that they're going to be pulling CBP out, does not mean that there's going to be a drawdown in ICE necessarily. And so the contract that one of our researchers and writers found was here's where we can get into conspiracy theory land.
Well, this is going to be posted on social media, so I really wish you would.
So
look, you want people to see this or not, Mike?
Yeah, no, I don't want them to see this ever because I want people to maintain their sanity. We
have choice. Red pill, blue pill, Mike.
Red pill, blue pill moment, guys. We're about to go into the thing that tipped us off that Minnesota, I don't think is over, and I think really corroborates what people on the ground are experiencing. Not that their experiences need corroborated on the outside, but
right.
I think for the general public that is watching the general news, the news media move away from it, they just dropped last week a new contract, actually under a DOD contract vehicle for advanced logistics ramp up in the St. Paul area of responsibility. So it's this AI powered logistics firm that is supposed to be coming to St. Paul to expand their logistical footprint and provide assistance on the ground in St. Paul. It's a month and a half long contract, if I remember correctly. That to me does not sound like a drawdown necessarily. It actually uses the language, a surge in operations in the contract description. So when you're reading these things and you see them mentioning St. Paul and we know what's happening in St. Paul, I don't think they're drawing down. They might be moving people around or having people work differently around the state in other areas. I don't think they're leaving.
So if they say 700 to 1,000 agents of whatever kind, CPB or ICE, have left Minneapolis, they mean very possibly they have crossed over the border or over the river from Minneapolis to St. Paul or elsewhere in the suburbs. They're more spread out, so you can't see them. They're not as concentrated as they might be in a much smaller territory, but they're not drawing down. And this new AI tool or new AI contract, is it indicating that they're doing more surveillance of people? What does that mean?
No, so this is going to be super boring. And again, it's the boring contracts that are the ones that draw the
Like,
most
nothing
attention.
you have said so far has been boring to me. And I
Yeah.
profoundly ADHD. I promise you. We're riveting. So tell us.
They're like a logistics company. They move boxes and freight, but their
Okay.
the thing that makes them unique is that they use AI somehow
Whatever.
to make that easier or more expedient.
But it's more about moving things around in the same territory. And back to what you guys were mentioning before, when they say Minneapolis, that doesn't mean the same thing it means to you and me. This is my interpretation. So when they say we're drawing down from Minneapolis right away, they know how that is misleading the American people and even the people of the greater Minneapolis area. But they also know that technically they think they can get away with it because they're saying that's how we refer to the state of Minnesota. That is the lingo in our business because we say anything covered by the Minneapolis field office is Minneapolis. Is that an accurate summary?
Yeah, and it's really important to remember that Minnesota is a border state. It's right there on the Canadian border. There are customs and border patrol stations all along the Canadian border up there. So when you move people out of Minneapolis, especially CBP, they could just be going home to where they were, a couple hundred miles north or even less. What we've found is that DHS in particular as an agency is very fond of shell games. Say one thing, do another, obfuscating. I don't want to say outright lying all the time, although we've
I'll say lying. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a few outright
my
lies that we've
opinion
caught
as
them
a
in.
nobody that it sounds like if I didn't know better, lying.
Yeah, it's a lot of it, and we're seeing a lot of it. So yes, Greg Bovino has left the Twin Cities. The CBP might have followed him to some extent. ICE is still there, and that does not stop what they are doing from happening. And certainly we're still seeing contracts in support of it.
It's my understanding, Bree, Mike, that you have had a busy few days because some new documents just dropped. We are filming this on February 18th in the evening. What is it that has dropped in the last few days? And what does that make you think is about to happen?
Can I nerd out for a second?
Please.
So I'm going to use an acronym a lot tonight, and I'm going to spell it out one time and no one's going to remember it. It is the Worldwide Expeditionary Multi-Award Contract, WEXMAC, Territorial Integrity of the United States, TITUS. It's two parts, two words, WEXMAC TITUS. WEXMAC by itself is a program that began under the Biden administration that is run by the Department of the Navy. So it's a DOD contract. It divides the world up into about 23 geographic regions. And for each of those geographic regions, there are pre-approved pools of contractors. Boring stuff like shipping contractors, unloading contractors, flight line contractors, logistics truck drivers, and things of that nature. And the idea of it was that if an emergency happens somewhere in the world, and the United States Navy or like the Coast Guard or FEMA have to very rapidly deploy to go somewhere, there are existing contracts in place that they can just activate and use to help get them set up so that they don't have to go through an expedited bidding process, like going on to sam.gov and saying, hey, newsflash, we need everybody that's interested in supporting us to put in their offers, and we'll analyze them and pick the best one. By doing the WEXMAC model, they're already pre-approved, they're always on standby, and the military and different government agencies can just tap them and say, we're coming in, we need you to support, and they can do it rapidly. So it's a good thing, right? In theory, it's a very robust model for doing good things at the drop of a hat. What has now kind of morphed it into something a little darker is last year, they started what is called WEXMAC TITUS. TITUS being they've added a 23rd geographic region to the world, which is the United States and its territories. And part of that
because
was
we didn't need to deploy troops to the United States before this.
No, there was never really a need for it. So we had a contract for the Americas, Canada, Mexico, Latin America, in case we needed to go into South America and assist with like a landslide or an earthquake or something of that nature, but never for the continental United States proper. Now there's one. The original intent was for small businesses to be on this contract that we could tap around the world to support. Enter the Trump administration, and now they've added a number of new regions which are for big businesses. We're talking companies that are publicly traded, that are included in people's 401ks, Geo Group and Core Civic, and all these big popular names, specifically DHS contractors. And they've added language to this that says that the Department of Homeland Security has access to all of those contract vehicles for the purpose of building expeditionary detention space, soft-sided camps to hold immigrant detainees, fitting out warehouses to hold people that are going through deportation processing. And so that means that Homeland Security essentially has access to turn on a contract within 24 hours notice, cut a task order to a contractor and say, we need you tomorrow to fit out a warehouse with ventilation or with bedding or with whatever the case may be. And there's no public record of it until about 90 days after the fact. So when we were talking about Minneapolis earlier, when we were talking about St. Paul, that was a WEXMAC TITUS contract in support of a surge of ICE agents in St. Paul.
And that was just in the last few days.
That just dropped last week, yeah.
We're speaking on February 18th as a reminder. So there's a lot of problems with this, right? So the WEXMAX, because it's in this big DOD sort of shell and it's sort of emergency, it does not go through the normal bidding process. There's no competitive bidding. So there's no paper trail along those lines that there might usually be. And so it happens so quickly. And because it isn't reported out till 90 days later, it's a way of them covering their tracks when building, for example, huge warehouses for detaining human beings around the country. So when we're looking at those things that are very quickly moving, it seems like they're also making a lot of mistakes. What are some of the things you've noticed over the last few days that are troubling if you are hoping that if they are building these horrendous camps, that at least maybe they would be done well or have studied the impact of the local area or how they were going to really care for the people who are detained, since we have heard atrocious, horrifying stories from Baltimore, from Texas, from Minneapolis and Chicago and all over the country of the conditions in which detainees are kept.
I'm wincing while you say that because I wish I could tell you that we've seen some indication that there is like some due diligence being done.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, is we are thankful that there is at least some semblance of law being adhered to here. Obviously, I think everything they're doing is within the boundary of the law, not necessarily within the spirit of the law. But we do get an advance notice when they have activated certain contracts and made them available. There's a general notice that goes out that says these 54 contractors were just added to WEXMAC TITUS. And so we can look at that list. We can research what those contractors get, what they traditionally get hired for, and we know what they're capable of doing. And deep within the contract documents are these list of things called exhibit line items, ELINs. And those say exactly what they're being contracted to provide. So in the case of ICE, we've seen detention services for like armed guards, bedding, medical staff. And so, it's very logistical oriented. To answer your question, what have we seen that gives us hope that there's some due diligence being done? I would say next to nothing. I have seen absolutely no due diligence being done. There are $38.3 billion being allocated towards this rapid change in their detention structure. Very little of that is actually going towards people coming in and assessing the sites. ICE says they're coming in and assessing the sites, but I have a source within a contractor that works for ICE that has said they're not doing that. That work isn't happening. They're just buying property and they will figure the logistics out later. That is a huge concern right now, that they are just looking to get the land and get people into it, and they will figure out the ventilation, the sewage, the water, drinking water, as well as showering and bathing and sanitation. That is an afterthought. That is not something they are trying to do.
And
right
we've
now.
already heard about the horrific conditions in all those places we mentioned and across the country, and measles spreading and tuberculosis spreading and sick babies being not allowed to go to the hospital and horrific things.
I think it all follows the same trend as them on the ground, right? Oh, we don't know if people are documented. We don't know if they're American citizens. We'll just grab them, shoot first, ask questions later. And we're really starting to see that in their long-term plans versus just some operation in the middle of an American city. So I think it's safe to say all around they're sloppy. It's just a giant idea of grandeur. I don't know what these people are trying to do, what they plan to do, but any way you put it, I don't see it going well. and I don't see it not causing a lot of harm in multiple ways.
I mean, when I'm sloppy in my day job, it ain't great, but it's not going to kill people. When ICE and DHS and CPB are sloppy, it seems through a whole range of ways, it's killing people. When you're sloppy about ventilation, it's killing people. When you're sloppy about drinking water, it's killing people. When you're sloppy about protocols about when and when not to use force on the streets, that is killing people. And from what you're seeing in the records, it's get 1,500 to 5,000 people in a place with 4 walls first, and then figure out whether or not you need more toilets.
Yeah, Blair, and I want to add to that, just to send home the point of how I think little concern there is within that solicitation on that WEXMAC TITUS contract. There's a clause that basically says those detention site owners and operators don't get a say in who stays within their facility. If they are contracted to provide detention services, anyone that ICE sends to them, they have to take. The problem with that, as we've seen in Dilley and in other locations, we're talking infectious disease. Well, let's talk about Hagerstown for a minute. Hagerstown, Maryland is a very remote location in terms of population. It's not a very big area. I know, I grew up there.
It's about an hour and a half.
It's about 80 miles west of us, right at the juncture of I-81 and I-70.
Right where like a little before the mountains start of West Virginia.
Yeah, right in the foothill of the Blue Ridge Mountains, right in the Allegheny leg of the Appalachians. And so it does have access to infrastructure in terms of interstate and rail and air, right? It's very close to that. But if you're talking about bringing in a population of people and putting them into a warehouse where there's no ventilation and illness is spreading, the way that ICE provides health services to detainees is through a function of DHS called the ICE Health Service Corps, IHS. And they're frontline triage health providers. They're not specialty care providers. They check you to make sure that you're not running a fever. They'll put a Band-Aid on if you're bleeding. But if you have advanced respiratory issues, they're sending you out into the community to get that care. They're sending you to Meritus Regional Hospital in Hagerstown, which is going through a healthcare provider shortage. So now you're competing with
a lot of places, ironically, in part because funding has been cut because of ICE. Anyway.
Yeah. And so you're talking about taking very sick people that are in very cramped conditions that is exacerbating that illness, putting them on the economy for healthcare in a community care setting. If it's measles spreads. It's the most infectious disease. You're seeing that happen in Dilley right now. So the concern for people that are in the wake of these warehouses is a moral one. First of all, it is a human rights issue, first and foremost, for the people that are in those camps. It is also, there are secondary effects that come with that for the people that live close to it. If the site isn't configured for sewage and wastewater, that's leaching into your soil. That is going to end up in your well water or in your water table. That will come back and haunt you for generations. It's a tax on your power grid. It's a tax on your emergency services. It's a tax on just about every bit of infrastructure that ties to it. And it comes with no real benefit to the communities that live there. And I hate to talk about a detention camp in the terms of what benefits does it bring, but a detention camp isn't generating property tax revenue if it's federally owned. Hagerstown's going to lose $300,000 a year across the state of Maryland and locally by virtue of the federal government owning that land. That's a problem for people that live there. And I don't think many people have really considered that. We're looking at the logistics of it. We're looking at the contracting side of it. And that inevitably leads to the property record side of things. How is this funded? Who's paying for this? Where's that money coming from? And the answer is none of the people that live there are going to benefit. None of the people that live in the state of Maryland are going to benefit. Surely none of the people that get processed through there will benefit in any way whatsoever. The only people that stand to benefit from this are the contractors and the federal employees that will be brought in to run those sites, and they will be doing that on the back of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
It seems not only is it not going to benefit people of Hagerstown, people of Maryland, or these other locations, but it's actually going to wind up costing them potentially a lot of money, not just in taxes, but in the burden to their health system. And now you're taking all these, in theory, more sicker people who have respiratory illness, who have contagious illnesses like measles, tuberculosis, to an emergency room at a public hospital, perhaps in greater numbers than normally would be expected in a small city like Hagerstown. And what is that doing to the population? Part of my interpretation of what you're saying.
That's exactly right.
What are things that you're seeing now that are a little different than a week or two ago?
Something about the ATF trying to acquire this library of drones that all of the agencies can just go check one out of. Like, hey, whatever fits your mission, we got all shapes and sizes, just come grab one.
It's like one of those little mini libraries that people have on their front lawn, but
Yeah.
they're for drones. Nice.
Yeah.
And are these drones are these drones just surveillance drones? Are these armed drones? What are these drones for? Or is that just the menacing question that we're all dealing with right now?
It's kind of a big question mark. It's just a request for information that they put out, which is basically like, hey, can you guys do this for us? If so, we might ask you for it later, but just start planning it. Let us know if we can do it.
If I could be hysterical for a moment, we've seen how tactically talented these ICE agents are. If they can just check out drones, it sounds like to me like any group of 3 or 4 or 5 yahoos who wants to go surveil houses with drones, that they can just do it without a warrant. I hate to bring this up, but I was a lawyer 150 years ago for about 3 minutes. It sounds like they can just check out these drones and we're going to surveil people, whether it's people we think are in the country illegally, whether we don't even know, but we just don't like the looks of them, or whether it's somebody who we saw filming us legally under their First Amendment rights. And now we're just going to kind of follow them around with our drone. Is that a hysterical thought of what these might be used for?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head.
Should I be more panicky?
I wouldn't panic too much about it. Again, it sounds like a really weird, grandiose idea. Anyways,
everything they have done so far has sounded weird and improbable a year or two ago, though.
Right? I used to think these are all conspiracy theories, and now they're coming true, and I'm like, oh my God, am I going nuts? So
no, I don't think so.
One that I thought was really
no offense,
weird.
Bree, but I wish you were going nuts.
So one of the things that was really weird about the drones that they were asking for, the first one they asked for was supposed to be like 10.5 inches by 10.5 inches. It said that it's supposed to go into places where humans can hide and go in all these little crevices. Why do you need that? But then it went all the way up to a payload of over 50 pounds, I think. But nothing explicitly said, we're going to drop bombs on you guys.
Pretend I haven't served in the military in any way. What would a drone that is 50 pounds be able to do that a drone that is 10.5 by 10.5 inches cannot do?
A small drone like a 10.5, if it's aerial or if it's ground-based, is essentially something that a remote operator could fly into a building. And if it's ATF and they're looking for firearms or alcohol and tobacco or any of the things that they look for these days, they could maneuver through a very tight space, go into crawl spaces. CBP could potentially use that to find people that are coming across the border and using underground tunnels, according to their work statement. The larger you go in scale, the bigger the drone gets. The concern then becomes, what is it capable of carrying? What other things can you put on it? And I'm not talking about weaponry. I'm more talking about intelligence collection platforms, systems that they can mount to it that can collect vast amounts of data. One of the things we saw very early on that still keeps me up at night today.
I know what you're going to say.
Let him say it. Michael, please tell us what it is that still keeps you up at night.
They're buying and have bought a tremendous amount of spyware that the military has used for a very long time. And I'm thinking of things like cell site simulators. But think of it like a vacuum cleaner that they attach to a tower or to a drone or a car. In some cases, we saw them buying cars that have cell site simulators attached to them. And the way it works is it drives around and you can flip the tower on. And if you're sitting on the bus and you're on your phone and you're watching YouTube, every time you move so many 100 feet, your phone jumps to the next tower in the relay to keep you connected to the cell network. These cell site simulators intercept that signal as it's jumping from tower to tower and redirect it to their cell tower within the car. You lose internet connectivity. You lose everything that you're doing. They get to see what you're doing. What packets are you sending across the grid? And with that comes your exact location. And the problem with this, from a Fourth Amendment standpoint, is that it is a dragnet.
It's not the kind of evidence you would need to get a warrant. It's just
Right.
literally, we're going to pick up everyone and sort them out later.
Yeah. And they're relying on very sophisticated AI networks that they're buying from companies like Palantir to analyze the information that they're getting off that, to create profiles of people, to figure out who they're interacting with, who they're co-located with. If you get a lot of cell phone geolocations and they see you're all co-located, they know that you're a social network in the most traditional sense of the term. And they are exploiting that data to figure out not just where immigrants are, but now, as we're finding out, where quote unquote domestic terrorists.
You
People
mean
that are in
terrorists like Don Lemon and
Yeah,
Georgia?
I mean-
I just forgot her name, in Minneapolis, like those kinds of terrorists. Yeah.
And we're
Mhm.
seeing Ken Klippenstein, a journalist that I follow, just
Yep.
released a report that they built a threat profile against a Redditor, the Twin Cities, that wanted to go do a street corner sign holding protest. DHS spent a considerable amount of time generating an entire threat profile about this 50-year-old guy that just wanted to go hold signs on the street corner and ask other people to come with him. And it went all the way through what subreddits he frequents and who he talks to and what he talks about. What are we doing?
Well, I
those are
think
the
we
things
know
that
what
keep
they're
me up.
doing. Hey, just for our listeners and for maybe for me, does a standard VPN or anything like that even help with that sort of thing?
I mean, it can, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're better with one than without one, especially if you're doing things like that. But honestly, in that circumstance, if it's posted on the public internet like Reddit and anyone can see it, it doesn't matter if they've, if you're behind a VPN or not. All it takes is they do what's called threat profiling, target profiling. They look at your username, they correlate that with other accounts that you have.
Sure.
Being behind a VPN does very little if what you're doing is public facing. Like for me,
For me too.
that's my
And
name on the screen. I'm not worried.
And I use Signal and whatever and other things, and depending who I'm talking to in particular. But well, okay, except I have all these social media platforms that my name is out, and before that I was a comedian. I'd rather there be more of us all out in public. I'm not trying to be scary, and I'm also not trying to be glib about it. I think the idea that all these tools that we have are going to be able to protect most people who haven't been living off the grid for the last 20 years is a lie that people are telling to themselves. I think that it might in short term or certain ways be helpful. They don't necessarily have to know what you're doing every second and every minute and as you're going to a place or coming back to a place. But it sounds like to me, unless you've really been off the grid, not using your cell phone or using a VPN since 2000 or something, that there's just a lot of ways they can find people if they really decide they want to.
And I'll say this to that too. If people take anything away from this conversation, besides the fact that we've seen way too many contracts, it is the efforts of very ordinary people all across the United States with very commonplace everyday skills. Skills like knowing how to look up a plumbing permit, knowing how to write a letter of principal consulting party, lawyers, engineers, very common everyday people coming together and using those skills that they've learned after years on the job or in college to basically resist this machine that is building this network of detention centers and spyware and everything else we've talked about. The politicians are very important. They're great allies, but the bulk of the work that's being done across this nation are by very ordinary people. Bree and I, we talk about it with our team all the time, are the folks that reach out to us that have had that light bulb moment that say, wait a minute, I have skills. I did property appraising for years on end, and part of that was floodplain analysis. I'm going to go look at the floodplains for these detention sites, and I'm going to provide a report. Albert Slapp, if you're out there, God love you. You are an American hero. This guy gave us floodplain reports for all of the detention warehouses so that we could give them away freely to people that are organizing resistance who can go to their Department of Energy or Department of Environment and say, this site is sitting on a 100-year floodplain. We've seen this. I can read this. I can articulate this, and I can use this data to advocate for what's right for our communities, right for our neighbors, right for the country, and right for the ethics that we will have to live with. The fruits of this administration, the things that we're going to have to live with for the rest of our lives and beyond. If you're just sitting out there and you're waiting for your cue, you're waiting for what to do, it's whatever skill you have right now, just do something.
It brings me to two topics I want to hit before I let you guys go get some much needed rest. Now that we've had a little,
we're going to go look at contracts.
Yeah, we're still going to be
okay.
up. Like,
Oh boy, I'm probably going to be editing this. First, what was different? Why did the buying of the warehouse in Hagerstown, Maryland, blow up this whole story about the expanding rapidly detention centers and how they were being planned for so many places and for so many people?
This has been literally every single day of my life since December. The reason that the warehouses, Hagerstown in particular, because it was the first that was bought, are different is if you look back at how ICE has used detention space, they have a couple different models. They have things like intergovernmental service agreements where they use detention space in like county jails or federal penitentiaries to house immigrants. They have contract facilities with companies like CoreCivic and Geo Group. to, again, they're privately owned detention centers that they can put people in. But this represents the first time that ICE has started to buy at scale massive warehouse space, 400,000 square feet to 900,000 square feet in some instances, for industrialized deportation. And this goes back to something that Acting Director Lyons at ICE said at the end of last year, which is they wanted to do for deportation what Amazon did for next day shipping. They wanted to create this massive pipeline. And so by buying Hagerstown, what that signaled was they had the funds and the will to start doing that. We know that in December, Washington Post leaked a list of about 23 different warehouses that ICE was eyeballing. That's what we were watching. And so when Hagerstown was bought, that was the first domino falling. And we found it very quietly. We did not find it ostentatiously, but when we reported it, it immediately changed the tenor of reporting. I'm not saying that like we magically changed the way the press works, but it lit a match that turned everybody's attention to warehouses, industrial space. It basically means that ICE has at their disposal these intense spaces that they have total control of, and they're not willful participants with the state and the counties on how those sites are being set up. It is a completely antagonistic way of doing deportation. It's not a civil matter. These are, by the definition of the term, concentration camps, where they are concentrating large groups of people to get them out of the country very quickly. But they're doing it industrially. They're buying these next to interstate nexuses. They're buying these next to rail beds. They're buying these next to airports. And they're not doing it very well. That's the other thing behind this. Bree said this earlier. Everything they're doing is like throwing a plate of spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. Yesterday, they announced that they bought a warehouse in Lebanon, Tennessee. And then 24 hours later, they said, whoops, we actually didn't. That was a message that went out too soon. Same thing with Chester, New York. And they're getting people scared. People are terrified of what's coming to their neighborhoods, but they're doing it badly. They're doing it really badly. And in many cases, they're buying these facilities, but no one wants to work in them, or the municipalities are working against them. So they've just spent hundreds of millions of dollars buying shell space that's never going to get used. And again, as we've kind of pulled the thread on where these warehouses are and who owns them, the people that are profiting from this are not like mom and pop warehouse owners. These are big Wall Street execs, big Wall Street firms with ties, in some cases, to the Trump administration, that are profiting off the sale of these warehouses on the taxpayers' dime. And so whether or not ICE actually gets any of them operational in the near term, there will be people laughing all the way to the bank, no matter what happens. It's in our community's best interest to fight them and to resist them. And the challenge to the lawmakers going forward is, how do you prevent this from ever happening again? What mechanisms do you build into our civic code to stop something like this from ever becoming a reality again? Because the downstream impacts are going to be massive for the people that have to endure them, whether they endure them 60, 90 days on their way out of the country and walk out with measles and mumps and tuberculosis and trauma from their experiences in these camps, to the people that will live and grow up next to them and the generations of people that will be traumatized by that experience. And then what does that do to the moral character of our country going forward? This is a total sea change for ICE. This is a very dark change. And I think we're still figuring it out as we go.
There's a lot of talk that when they own the buildings versus leasing them, that there's a supremacy clause issue and that nobody can come in there and tell them what to do, and they're not obliged to follow any local laws, or it's like a lawless situation. If for some reason they own the property or they own the building, that somehow nothing else matters, and now it's just they can do whatever they want. That just doesn't seem to me how the law usually works. And so I'm curious about what people in different kinds of conditions can do to fight this, starting with the places like in Hagerstown where they have outright bought property.
So let's talk Hagerstown. They own that warehouse. That means that they can build on that land. It means that they can fit it out in ways that they want. They can bring in equipment and store it there. They don't have to pay taxes on it. But they are still beholden to the realities of the physical earth in which they abide. And let's talk about water. They cannot generate water for a warehouse. They are reliant upon the Potomac River, the Washington County water table, the karst rocks, the formations that are out there that hold water, and they're in a drought. So in order for ICE to get that warehouse operating with enough drinking water and wastewater, they are reliant on the state of Maryland, the county of Washington County, the city of Hagerstown, and the city of Williamsport. And there are opportunities there for people that are living there. People that are doing this right now to submit letters to the Maryland Department of the Environment to ask for consulting party status, because they were never consulted. and they should have been consulted. The people should have had a say in what was being bought and built there.
If I'm being devil's advocate, I'm saying, okay, great. I'm going to demand consulting status. I am the city of Williamsport. I am the county of Washington. Well, maybe not those guys, but I'm the city of Hagerstown. I'm the state of Maryland. I get consulting status. What does that mean? And why do they just say, tough shit, we're going to run pipes to your reservoir? I don't know how pipes work. Run the pipes to the reservoir and take your water and use it. Or maybe worse, we don't give a shit if there's really enough drinking water by your standards. We've decided that X, Y, and Z is enough, and man, we'll bring in some extra bottles.
Yeah, because it's federal law, actually, the National Environmental Protection Act, Section 106 of the NEPA. The federal government has to abide by federal law, and federal law says that those state entities have to be consulting parties. And if Hagerstown doesn't provide the water, ICE is up a creek, really, literally in this case. How are they going to bring water in? How are they going to take care of those people? There are still avenues for the state to hold the federal government accountable. I mean, they're reliant on building codes in a lot of cases. The fire marshal still gets
Are they still? This is a serious question. So because they say that when they own the building, there's all these things that they don't have to do. What do they still have to do, even if they own the property and the building? Do they have to abide by local fire codes?
Have to abide by local fire codes. They have to abide by their own national detention standards. ICE has national detention standards. The federal government has national detention standards. And so if ICE isn't holding itself accountable, Congress has the ability to hold ICE accountable through the Office of the Inspector General and through their oversight powers. So again, if you're looking ahead at the midterms and you are feeling like this is not something that you want to have happen, you have the power of the vote. Everyone listening to this has the power of the vote, and they can control what happens, whether ICE gets this operational or not. It is not a permanent done deal. It might be a temporary pain that unfortunately many people are going to live through. Many might not live through it. But that's where we are right now, and there are powers that we have as everyday citizens, that the state has, and that the federal government has to control itself. And we have to lean on that, and it is possible. We have to continue to believe that it's possible. We cannot continue to believe their lie that there's nothing we can do.
Oh, they want no resistance. And they've demonstrated over and over again that resistance, it becomes even more of a clown show. They don't have the expertise. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the infrastructure because of the number of people who have been dismissed by DOJ or quit from various agencies that to really handle a lot of opposition. They certainly don't have the legal power. You had those prosecutors in Minneapolis having a nervous breakdown in front of a judge saying they don't have the manpower, that he hasn't slept in 18 days or whatever that was. And so they do not have it. Don't misinterpret me. I believe resistance is the way to go. And even if it is dragging your feet, being a huge pain in their ass, is a fantastic strategy. So let's say I wanted to be a huge pain in the ass in Maryland. What are some of the things that I could do? Where would I go, for example, to learn how to fill out a Form 106 to be a consulted figure, or complain about floodplain impact on my property or the fire code or whatever it might be?
First place you start is go to your city council meetings or your county council meetings. And if they have the opportunity for comment, show up and start talking. Make your voice heard, even if they don't want to hear you. We're watching that happen in Hagerstown right now, where they're shutting off the meetings halfway through because the people that are there don't like what's happening. They're shutting it off because they're scared.
For those who don't know, around the country, one of the county council members in Washington County, where Hagerstown, Maryland is, used to be in the first Trump administration.
He was a member of the National Security Council in 2017 and then helped squash the Miller investigation under Rep. Nunez from California. So, yeah, he's got roots. He's got ties.
In case anybody was looking for some local campaigns to donate to, I'm sure there's a lot of great opposition folks running in Washington County. Are there links that I want to fill out a demand to be a consulted party? Where do I go to do that? Is there a department that most cities or counties would have that's called a certain thing?
You can always reach out to your Department of the Environment for things that fall under the National Environmental Protection Act. They may or may not help you with that. But what I would say to those folks is that there are probably people in your community that do know how to do that. And that's where you can leverage social media. We're here tonight because Bree posted something on Reddit. That's the long and short of it. You're having this conversation with us, not because we're like superheroes that rose to the occasion. We're just
Yes, you
dudes
are.
on get online and form communities. And if you can't, reach out to us. We know people that can, or we can at least get you in touch with people that can.
Well, I'm going to go one better, and we don't have to say it now in this podcast, but I would love it if we could pull together a couple, even if it's just to start with Maryland, pull together a couple of links, even if it's not links here in Washington County or in Hagerstown or Williamsport. Here is a department and a phone number you could call to get a form. I would like to make it easier for people who are under stress. I want to make it as easy as possible for people to do something, even if it's writing a letter or filling out a form. It's a million people doing one small thing.
Here's the easy thing. Get on your computer, everybody, and Google Detention Watch Network, DWN. They have a whole bunch of different guides for things that you can be doing. They've been partnering with us on a couple of things. They're using our tracker map to locate things, and they have a whole kit
That's great.
you can go into that's got how to resist a warehouse. And
that's beautiful. I love that. Thanks. Perfect. Gorgeous. Because even that's going to take some doing. I'm in a lot of chats with a lot of smart people who've done a lot of activism, and there's still a lot of people not quite sure how to act yet. Like they're trying to figure it out, but they're moving very fast because they have $1 trillion. And so we're doing a little catching up, but thanks to people like you, we're more ahead of the game than we would have been if you guys weren't around.
And honestly, thanks to the people that have been doing this for decades. I mean, this has been work that's been ongoing for a long time. We're standing on the shoulder of giants, literally. But in the moment, with the platform that we have, we want to raise those voices.
I appreciate your modesty, except I also really appreciate all the work you've been doing and building that network. Even just giving this link and us getting this link out to whoever is going to see this amplifies it. And all of this, as you were talking about before, it's a bunch of people doing what they can where they are with what skills they already exist. And it's not sexy stuff. This is not Broadway star territory. This is more like land management expert person or electrical wiring expertise or whatever it might be.
I wanted Bree to talk about social media networking because she is doing such good stuff with that.
I just don't shut up. I'm in everyone's messages. I'm leaving comments everywhere. I don't care. You cannot get rid of me.
I love it.
That's how I tried to start out getting people's attention about all of this. But honestly, even if you think that your thoughts are insane, at this point, just put them anywhere anonymously with your name on them because so many people are listening and you don't even know it. I spent a couple days after the Reddit post, still blowing up the Reddit thread, talking about like, hey, here's an update. Hey, here's an update. And then we started getting more people that like actually cared. We got some reporters coming in our messages saying like, hey, what do you guys have? And at the time, the stuff that we had put together sounded absolutely insane, and they're bound to more like regulations than we are. They can get sued when they weren't able to do anything with what we had put together, and not to like toot our own horns, but everything that came out in the mainstream media, we found that like days prior, and we were blowing people up like, hey, we kind of have this and these are the documents and this is what we think. And they were saying to us, well, that's speculation. What do you mean? So that's how the Substack started. And we just said, screw it, throw it all up there. We're tired of dealing with this. People need to know.
To kind of wrap it up, because I need you guys to get back to work immediately. What is it that gives you hope? Bree, what is it that gives you hope?
I don't want to believe that as many people as they say there are around us are bad. And I want to see just people happy, caring about each other, because I know people are capable of it.
It is in their interest to have us believe that more people think like them, that more people want all these bad things to happen than who want to fight for the light. And I think that's bullshit. That is the lie that every narcissist throughout time, whether it was your jerk boss or Mussolini, has told themselves to justify to themselves and to the people they're manipulating why what they're doing is the right thing.
At this point, I'm furious. I don't know how more people aren't, and I'm kind of like holding myself together to be professional, but I'm fucking
I think a lot
mad.
of people are. I think you should be fucking mad. I think that everybody is trying to get through. Like, I still need money to pay for food, and I still need my job that has my health care attached to it. And also, if we never have any joy, then what are we even fighting for, right? I still try to laugh as much as I can. But all of us masking that shit's cool, I think as that is crumbling more and more, it's actually going to be better for all of us. because everyone is still a little, oh, maybe I'm just the one who thinks this is really as bad as it is. And it turns out, no. When you see the people in Minneapolis, they had to all unmask all at once because they didn't have a choice.
Right.
For those of us who kind of have a little bit of a choice still, it doesn't necessarily feel necessary, or maybe it doesn't feel safe to unmask with how angry and scared you are. But when I talk to people one-on-one, they are. So I'm going to give you hope in saying I think there's more people who feel exactly the way you do, but they're just trying to walk around and keep their day job to put food on the table for their kids.
These things, they're heavy, they're crazy. It's a lot to absorb. And I don't want people to see us and think, oh, they're so composed. Everything is okay. We don't have to worry about anything. Honestly, before I met Michael and everybody else and we started all of this, I would sit in my house just like fuming and crying. What is the point? Is it even worth it? And I would just be miserable. I felt it really boiling up. And now I have 6 people that I can talk to.
And 8 cats.
Exactly. And they can validate what I'm saying. And so
it's
now,
the importance of community. It's the importance
Exactly.
of community. And that's when you learn you're not alone. That's
Exactly.
why they benefit from us feeling separated. That's why they benefit from trying to make us feel like nobody else really feels this way. It's just me. To your point earlier.
Right. And if they start subpoenaing your social media, okay, you have my name, my face, my address. You already have that shit anyways. But now I have friends, or I know my neighbors. My neighbors know to check on me every day. It becomes less scary that they're threatening to drive by my house, or they know who I am or what my routine is. People really need to get to know the people that live next to them, or even like the next little neighborhood over, because if we all felt safe, they can't do shit to us.
Can I ask you this without upsetting you? Have you gotten, not necessarily from the government, but have you gotten concerning communications?
We have a dedicated hater on the Eastern Shore.
Oh yeah, that guy.
AI articles about us. But
Everybody in this side of the Bay who's on any kind of social media has dedicated hater on this.
What makes me hopeful, it's exactly that, is that in the wake of all this, like I was on TV a week ago and we
saw you on Mad App.
Yeah, well, the important part of that was before that, our concern was, is this going to open us up, and is this going to create this, like, you know, as much unwanted attention as we get from maybe the attention we want to the work we're doing. Someone told us that, you know, we've come this far, we've resisted this much, and what kind of resistance are we if we get this far, have this opportunity, and then stop, right, and give up?
Yep.
And in the wake of that appearance and all the attention that came with it, it's been overwhelmingly positive. It's been attention and output, concern and community from people all over the United States that want to improve things for their communities. It's why 200 people show up to a city council meeting in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. That's community. And that's the thing that's giving me hope, is that our resolve is getting stronger at a time that their institution is falling apart. Trisha McLaughlin's leaving. Kristi Noem's under fire. They're putting out announcements for sites they haven't built yet or bought yet. They're buying tools. They're literally buying tools at the drop of a hat to try to justify their immorality, and they can't even do that right. They're falling apart. We're getting stronger. And I'm a cynical person. I'm a deeply pessimistic person, and probably for the first time in a long time, I'm feeling more hopeful than ever that the ship is turning around. But we've got to keep it up. That we've got to continue to be persistent.
I am a paranoid person who knows a lot about dealing with narcissists in their life, and yet I am cursed with optimism. It's not that I've never been disappointed, but I have found that trying to tamp that down to guard, saying, well, everything sucks. I've tried that. It doesn't work. If you're going to be disappointed, you're still going to be disappointed. And I think that the optimism, I feel it's not about a party. There's an election coming, but it's really about what's happening now with people. I didn't know you guys, you know, and we don't live very far from each other in this same town. You got 8 cats. How did I not know that before? I like to say we all in this action together, everybody on Team Democracy gets to have their times where they have to break away. They have their moments where they get to have a nervous breakdown. We're just all going to try to have enough of us so that we don't all have a nervous breakdown at the same time. We just need to stagger them. There's nothing wrong with having those breakdowns. In fact, it might be weird if we didn't, but it doesn't make it any less true that we're doing great things and there's stuff to be positive about. I lived here for 3 years or so before this, and let me tell you how many more people I now know who live in Baltimore than I did before. I've now been into the Senate and in the House of Delegates in Annapolis. One last thing before we go. Bree, I am going to need you to tell me the names of all 8 of your cats.
So I have Henry, Bear,
Nice.
Theo, Pia,
Excellent.
Todd, Oliver, Salem, and then the other one, he doesn't really have a government name. He just responds to little baby, but on paper he's Oswald.
Beautiful.
You can find us at Project Saltbox at .substack.com. The best way you can support us is read our work, read what we're putting out there, look at the tools that we're producing, and then turn right around and go and use that information in some way. Whether that's showing up to a town council meeting or writing your representative or talking to your neighbors, use the information for good. And if you have money to spare, we don't want your money. There are organizations in your local community or here in Baltimore, if you live in Baltimore, that need it way more than we do. And here locally, we recommend Asili Women Enterprise.
Oh. And Michael, I'm so glad that you stopped me a month or whatever, 6 weeks, I don't even know what it was, at the protest because I had my ears on and we had never met in person. And so I'm so glad that you stopped me on the street that day.
Before there was Maddow, there was the Cat Ladies for America, and you're our first.
Oh, sure. Well, you know, it's the old Cat Ladies for America lift. Everybody knows about that.
No, it really was. It was seriously, truly was.
Oh, well, good. Well, tell Rachel Maddow to, we want a mug. Sign off all my videos with claws out and a little meow. Bree, I know you got this. Mike, I have super great confidence in you.
You have an actual cat in there?
Yes. Yes.
All right, this is Bear Bear. He's the leader.
Okay. Alpha Cat. All right. All right, everybody. Thank you again to Mike and Bree from Project Saltbox, having impact nationwide, but based right here in Charm City, Baltimore, Maryland. Claws out.